good afternoon. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Claire Dufour.
And I'm Wyatt Gilliland. Here are today's top stories. The Toronto rapper known as Top 5 walked free yesterday. Hassan Ali had been in jail since 2021 on murder charges, but much of the evidence that put him behind bars was deemed inadmissible yesterday by a judge. Top 5 was charged in the murder of a 20-year-old accounting student, Hashim Omar Hashi, who had no ties to any crime.
There will be a special meeting of the Toronto District School Board tomorrow to figure out what went wrong during a school trip last week. It was supposed to be an educational visit to Grange Park to learn about the Grassy Narrows First Nations fight for clean water. Instead, students found themselves in the middle of a pro-Palestinian rally. Premier Doug Ford said he will hold accountable the people responsible.
Whether you live in Toronto or commute in for work or school, or whether you're just an occasional visitor, you'll know Toronto is a very noisy place. Here's reporter Mehmet Oner with a story about the city and what others are trying to do about it.
The reason you can't hear me is not a technical issue. It's the city's overwhelming noise. From lawn movers to cars, motorcycles, and traffic noise. Back in June, the bylaw governing noise got a little bit stricter. And in July, more restrictions were phased in. So that by now, a whole new set of noise bylaws are in effect. But will they make a difference? Ingrid Bode founded the organization No More Noise Toronto 3 years ago.
One thing that I do is I study noise at the bedroom window. And so the noise levels that I am finding at the bedroom window is anywhere from 85 decibels.
85 decibel is actually pretty loud, about like a food blender or an air conditioner or a vacuum cleaner. The updated noise bylaw brings in several key changes, like lowering the allowed decibel levels and tighter restrictions on motor vehicle noise. Residents can report noise more easily by calling 311 or filing a complaint online on the City of Toronto website. But Ingrid Boudet's group runs an alternative to 311. The Not 311 portal received 12,000 noise complaints from the beginning of 2022 to August 2023. The most complaints come in Sundays and Mondays. Not surprisingly, most complaints come at night time. Barb Mellons lives with her husband in Yorkville. During summer months, they are regularly disturbed by the music and noise coming from nearby bars and restaurants.
I'm only concerned about the sleeping hours, so it's 10 o'clock, it will start, and it will be the sound of bass, constant bass, and some vocal music, excessively loud.
After reporting the issue to 311 without success, she turned to Not 311. Ingrid Boudet then showed up at the door and installed meters to measure sound levels. Based on the data Boudet collected, Barb Mellons and her husband made plans to escalate their complaint to the city. In the coming months, how much the new bylaw will reduce noise pollution in the city we will see, or rather we will hear. For On the Record, I am Mehmet Oner.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau made a splash with Stephen Colbert last night. He made a surprise appearance on the Late Night Show, where Colbert and Trudeau talked about issues facing Canadians. The Prime Minister got a big round of applause when he poked fun at the US for not having universal health care.
Next week sees the opening of a new session at Queen's Park. The Ford government is planning to table legislation that would ban bike lanes on major city streets across the province. The government says it's a way of combating traffic congestion, but Toronto Mayor Olivia Chow says it's a bad idea that will only make traffic worse.
For drivers trying to get around our city, there's now yet another challenge. And as we hear in this story from Saadeq Ahmed, if drivers fail the challenge, they'll face huge new fines.
If you're one of those drivers with the bad habit of ending up in the middle of an intersection as the light turns red, we have news for you. The city announced last week increased fines for drivers who block intersections. This is part of an ongoing commitment to reduce traffic congestion. The fine for an improper stop at an intersection, also known as blocking the box, has been increased from $90 to $450. Blocking the box is when a driver enters an intersection on a green or yellow signal and there is no way to clear the intersection before the light changes to red. Blocking the box is a serious safety concern that puts vulnerable road users at risk and disrupts traffic flow, said Mayor Olivia Harbin in an official statement. This fine increase reflects her commitment to ensuring Toronto's streets are safe for pedestrians and cyclists and reduce congestion that frustrates all road users. And an improper stop at an intersection is not the only fine increase. Stops done in a community safety zone have increased from $120 to $500. The increased fines are an attempt at encouraging responsible driving behavior as part of the city's congestion management plan.
None of these amplified fees will remove the root causes of road congestion. And I believe those are the bike lanes, the parking lanes, the interminable road construction, which again blocks roads, and the glacial pace of transit improvement projects.
Car owners like Steve Nikolov think that the increases are just too much.
Some people may be discouraged to drive, but I don't think it's going to affect the traffic whatsoever. The fines increase, the budget is going to get more full, and the traffic is going to stay the same.
The city is also exploring the use of technology such as cameras. This will allow for automated enforcement of these measures. However, this will require provincial approval that has yet to be given.
With fines that are bound to make a dent on people's purses, the city can only hope that these measures will help address Toronto's traffic problem. For On the Record News, this is Saadeq Ahmed.
And now we join this week's live host, Laviza Syed. She's downstairs in the OTR newsroom to tell us about the stories our reporters and producers are working on this week.
Thanks, Wyatt. Minimum wage is going up in Ontario 1 week from today. And in our newsroom, OTR reporter Krista Shepard is chasing a story on whether small businesses can afford the higher pay rate. The minimum wage will rise by nearly 4%, climbing to $17.20. Our reporter Krista will talk to owners of small businesses such as coffee shops and record stores, and that will be on our news website later this week. In local news, the City of Toronto has new noise reduction policies, and as we just heard in the piece from Mehmet Oner, there are new bylaws governing noise in the city. On our website later this week, Mehmet will have even more details on the story, so watch out for that one. Reporter Hssena Arjmand has a story for us, which we can't tell you too much about, but if she can nail it down, you won't want to miss it. Let's just say it involves a prominent Canadian rapper. And that's really all I can say for now. Lastly, our newsroom reporters will be hitting the streets for this week's podcast. They're asking TMU students about the student union and what they think the TMSU does for them. Be sure to visit ontherecordnews.ca to catch the podcast episode and the many news stories going live this week. That's all for now. Wyatt and Claire, back to you in the studio.
The finalists of the 2024 Toronto Women's Film Festival, held at Innis Town Hall on Sunday, are excited for the future of women in the industry. Katie Bell has more.
The festival is meant to support women in the film industry by featuring women directors and stories that center on women from across the world. The stories cover topics like mental health and breast ironing. Kayla Aaron directs the film Leaving Yellowstone. Her film is on the topic of domestic violence.
Representation does matter, and getting these stories to bigger audiences so they can feel validated or connected with the story one way or another, I think is extremely important.
Data from the Center for the Study of Women in Television and Film shows a new record for women. In 2023 to 2024, the majority of documentaries shown at major film festivals in the U.S. are directed by women. This is a first, but men still direct the majority of narrative features. Kayla's film is one of those.
A lot of women and people, not necessarily only women, really identify with this story, which is, really sad. But what I think that these people get from, or that, survivors and people can get from a film like this is validation to know that you're not the only one who's gone through an experience like this.
Joseph Duque created the documentary Women's Work on birth workers in Utah.
Women's stories I just find aren't just for women, or because there's also, like, in my film, there's also the children, and then there's also the husbands and the family members who are giving support in traditional ways. And I think if we don't highlight women stories that are specific to women, then in one way, men can't learn those things.
The festival has been happening every year for the past 5 years, but this year there were only about 15 people in attendance. This leaves the question, how in demand are these women-only film festivals? For On the Record, I'm Katie Bell.
Now, we'll head over to Olivia Harbin to bring us up to speed on everything entertainment.
Milan Fashion Week has come to a close after an eventful 6 days. There were more than 50 collections on the various catwalks, looking ahead to spring and summer 2025. And of course, all the big design houses were there: Fendi, Prada, Gucci. And the hot looks? Well, there was what they called Mediterranean meets desert, where the brightest colors of Southern Europe were splashed against the sandy tones of North Africa. And Fendi brought a 100-year-old vibe to the show, celebrating the founding of House of Fendi in Rome a century ago. Chief designer Kim Jones created lines and silhouettes reminiscent of the flappers. Anna Wintour of Vogue magazine was in the front row, as she always is. And your favorite material girl, Madonna, was also there. Dolce & Gabbana brought a line of clothing inspired by Madonna's 1990s tour, Blonde Ambition. The year saw the return to Milan of the Black Carpet Awards, celebrating people of color who work in Italy across a variety of sectors, not just fashion. The Virgil Abloh Award was introduced this year as a tribute to the celebrated American designer who died in 2021. The award went to Romy Calzado, who was born in Cuba but moved to Italy as a child. She praised the late creative, saying he would be proud of the recognition the nominees and winners have received. In box office news, Halloween has already taken over ticket sales. 36 years after the original, people are heading to theaters to watch Tim Burton's new Beetlejuice sequel called Beetlejuice. It's in its third week of cinemas, and for the third weekend in a row, it has stayed at the top with worldwide ticket sales totaling nearly $330 million US. The new Transformers 1 movie, which was expected to go head-to-head with Burton's sequel, has been left behind. Debuting over the weekend, the Transformers movie has earned $39 million US, while Beetlejuice earned $41.5 million in opening day alone. Finally, the famous September singing band Earth, Wind & Fire have announced a documentary and released their directorial pick over the weekend. The Roots drummer, Questlove, will be joining as director of the film. After winning an Academy Award for his directing of Summer of Soul, a film based in Harlem during the 1960s, Questlove is looking forward to this project. He posted a screenshot of a Variety News article on Instagram that headlines his directorial role with the caption, "Gratitude for @Earth, Wind & Fire." With On the Record News Entertainment, I'm Olivia Harbin.
There's a severe weather alert in effect for Toronto tonight and into tomorrow. The city and surrounding areas could see up to 50 millimeters between late this afternoon and tomorrow morning. Hssena Arjmand has a weather look ahead.
Thank you. This is On the Record weather. It's a rainy day for the GTA today. We're looking at a high of 19 degrees with some showers, so be sure to have your umbrella handy if you're heading out. St. Catharines will reach a high of 21 degrees, while Barrie sits at 18 degrees. Mississauga and Oshawa are both looking at highs of 19 degrees. And as we move into Wednesday, it's still a bit of a rain check. Temperatures will rise slightly to 21 degrees with more showers expected. But don't worry, the rainy weather won't dampen your spirits for too long. As we head into the second half of the week, things start to brighten up. Thursday will bring a high of 22 degrees and mostly sunny skies, perfect for some outdoor plans. Friday follows with more sunshine and a high of 20 degrees, and we'll see similar conditions on Saturday and Sunday, with temperatures reaching 19 degrees under mostly sunny skies. Make sure you take advantage of the great weather this week before temperatures start to drop. And that's your weather update. Enjoy the rest of your day. For On the Record, I'm Hssena Arjmand.
Thanks, Hssena. And finally, we go to Abby North for the latest on and off the field. Here she is with this week's sports update.
Thanks. The Toronto Maple Leafs kicked off preseason on Sunday with a 6-5 overtime loss to the Ottawa Senators. Austin Matthews made his debut as captain, and it was also a debut for the Leafs' new coach, Craig Berube. The first cuts of the season were made at training camp, and on Saturday, 5 players were invited to return to their junior teams. And if you're a fan who prefers watching the Leafs play from the comfort of your own home, you'll be able to do that, although only for 6 games out of the 82 scheduled this season. Those games will be on Amazon Prime. And where sports meets tech, Rogers Communications is in the process of buying out Bell's share of Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment. But if the Rogers $4.7 billion buyout does go ahead, Rogers will then own 75% of MLSE. Up until now, Bell has had a 37.5% stake in MLSE, the same as Rogers. The rest is owned by the chairman of the company, Larry Tannenbaum. Bell says it's selling its ownership stake to reduce debt and to advance its transformation from a telecommunications firm to a tech company. So, what does this mean for Toronto fans? Well, Rogers' ownership of the men's pro sports franchises, the Leafs, the Raptors, the Argos, and TFC, could mean, among other things, higher ticket prices. The purchase still needs approval from the various MLSE franchises, and that's expected by the middle of next year. Rogers already owns the Toronto Blue Jays, so once it also holds a 75% share of MLSE, it will have become a sports media powerhouse. And for you hockey fans, it's time to blow the dust off those wooden sticks for a good cause. Thousands of people will gather in Vaughan this Saturday for a one-day tournament called Road Hockey to Conquer Cancer. It will feature roughly 150 teams. The annual fundraiser brings in millions for research at the Princess Margaret Cancer Centre. And 9 years ago, the tournament set a Guinness World Record for most money raised by a street hockey event. That year, the total was around $2 million. Organizers have set out to break the record every year since, and this year is no exception. And that's all for sports this week. I'm Abby North, and now back to you in the studio, Claire and Wyatt.
That's all for On the Record, this September 24th, 2024. I'm Claire Dufour.
And I'm Wyatt Gilliland. Join us for On the Record next week as we round out the latest stories from the OTR newsroom.
And for the latest 24/7, visit our website at ontherecordnews.ca. Have a great day.